Cycling is awash in apps. Indoor training software, outdoor mapping software, health and fitness apps, sleep apps, and much, much more. But which are actually worth paying for? Over the 25 years I've been working in cycling media, I've tested a whole mess of products, and most I have not had to pay retail for. In this video, I will share the 5 things I actually do pay for. 3 are specific products and 2 are types of apps. Some of these I was initially given free access to, like many in the media, and now I pay. To be clear, I'm not trying to sell you on any of these. I'm not giving you a special code or a discount link. I'm just answering a question that I regularly get, which is, what do you pay for? And that's just what this is. Not the most feature-rich or the shiniest, newest apps out there, just the ones I use as a customer. So now, sit back and let's dig into my top 5 cycling apps of 2025. Number 5, an orange app called Strava. A former colleague of mine, Jamie Wilkins, recently noted on one Strava file that I had done some 4,000 rides on Strava. Since I got on the app back in January of 2009, I've done some 5,500 activities. Most of those are bike rides. First couple years my use was a bit spotty, but for the last 9 years or so, I've done over 10,000 miles on Strava, and I enjoy it for 3 primary reasons: sharing, tracking, and route creation. I love seeing what others are doing, both close friends and folks I've never met. I love the photo sharing function, both for seeing what rides look like in places I've never been and maybe would like to go, or even learning about places closer to home. I appreciate keeping track of my miles. I find the goal setting an oddly motivating experience, and it's also, I appreciate the record of going back and seeing where I've ridden and being able to quickly share that with others. When people are coming to town looking for rides or going to my home state of New Mexico asking for places to ride, it's just handy to be able to share and say, here, look at this, and they can dig in and see what it looks like, both the route and the elevation profile and the photos that people have posted. So it's just a handy sharing resource. Route building is also super easy with the heat map functionality. It's not perfect. It's not as good necessarily as Ride with GPS in terms of surface treatment and being able to add little notes. But for an app I use pretty much every day, it's darn easy to use and, again, easy to share. Segments I'm not too highly invested in. There's still some gee whiz factor for me of seeing how quickly some pros have gone up various segments. Also, just nice to have this data in a single place. Not everything is on Strava, but a lot of it is, right? I remember back in the day when I worked at VeloNews, we would have the best times for local climbs on a sheet, a handwritten sheet that was just safety pinned to the side of somebody's cubicle. I've been on auto pay for I don't know how long. Just before I turned on the camera, I went and looked at how much I'm paying, and it's $80 a month. I didn't realize that it had gone up to that. Still, I'm happy to pay. I know there was some grumbling about, this is our data, it should be free. Strava's got a lot of engineers that it pays to build what I think is a lot of cool stuff. I appreciate that there's no ads, and I would rather pay for a rather pure experience instead of having a bunch of garbage shoved into my eyeballs all the time. So Strava, I dig it. Number 4, epic ride weather. Not a team of engineers, but a single solitary software engineer by the name of David Green cooked this up. And I love it for the infographic feature of being able to see what you're in for on big rides. I'll use this for races or when I'm doing a big ride to see which way the wind blows. Yes, Bob Dylan might have something to say, but I appreciate about being able to see all along the route what the temperature is, what the real feel is, what the wind direction is, and what the wind speed is on one handy infographic. Yes, you can use the info on your phone to see what the temperature is where you are and what it's going to be at one point later on, but to see everything in one spot, there is nothing like this specifically for cycling. Yes, the weather nerds might complain that, well, it used to be on dark sky and now it's based on Apple weather, which isn't as good, but for me, it's very handy information. Like any tool, it's only as good as the user, which sometimes isn't very good. I remember doing the Biscochito ride here a couple years ago, and I looked at epic ride weather, and it said up to 50 mile an hour gusts. And I was like, oh, it doesn't actually mean 50 mile an hour gusts. And we started, and a couple folks blew off the road. So like any tool, it's only as good as its operator, but it's a handy tool. It's $15 a year. I love that, and I'm happy to pay for that. It's interesting thinking about the $80 of Strava versus $15 for Epic Ride Weather. Corporation, what's viewed as a corporation versus what's viewed as an individual. One of my jobs at Outside was cycling membership director, where I was asking readers and viewers like yourself to pay for the content we knew they were consuming on the regular. And it was hard to get people to open their wallets. It seemed like it wasn't necessarily a particular price, but just the idea of giving a big, nasty, faceless corporation money was not something they wanted to do. Conversely, when there was an individual asking for money, like my former colleague James Wong recently started a newsletter on Substack, N-1, people are happy to pay for that. I've met a neighbor here at Illegal Pete's, a burrito shop, and he was talking about, yeah, I'm glad to give money to somebody like James. I've never met him, but happy to support individuals. So I guess that could be part of it for me with Epic Ride Weather, but really, I'm happy to pay for the service. If you're wanting to support an individual like me, I appreciate that. You can do that in a few different ways. There's a super thanks function down below where you can give cash straight to me. I appreciate that. You can buy a jersey or socks on my website. I'll put links down below. But primarily, I just appreciate you subscribing and telling your friends about what I'm doing here. I appreciate your support. Number 3, and the third orange app mentioned here. What is going on with this color? Zwift. Love this, particularly in the winter. I remember being at the launch of Zwift way back in September 2014. There was a launch in San Francisco, where I was, one in New York and one in London. There was 2 distinct groups of people in the room at that time, divided by their expressions and their reactions to this when it was launched. One group was folks who either did not have children and or lived in places where it was warm and sunny all the time. And they were like, why would you want to? No. Then the second group was comprised of people who either had children and or lived in busy cities and or lived in far northern places where it was often dark. And they were like, I could see the use of something like this. Fast forward to today, and I don't know how many virtual miles I've logged on there, but quite a lot. And I appreciate Zwift for a few reasons, and it's the social element is the primary driver. Sometimes social with actual human beings, and sometimes just the mental candy of being able to go with bots is a nice sweet spot for me of I can appreciate doing very specific wattage-based intervals sometimes, but not all the time. And mostly I just like following wheels, whether they're inside or outside. So being able to jump in with pacer bots or with friends, or one of my favorite things, ZRL racing, which is team-based racing. Love that. It's one of my favorite things. I remember a couple years ago, I was down in Arizona where it was just beautiful, sunny weather. We were down there to test gravel bikes, and I brought with me a Wahoo Kicker trainer. so after riding outside in the sunshine all day, I could come back for Tuesday night racing and race with my buddies. So Zwift is something that I absolutely pay for. It's $28 a month now. I try to remember to turn it off in the spring. Sometimes I forget to do so, and I'll pay for it all year. But ideally, I pay for it when I'm actually using it, which is winter through the spring. Recently, I've been using pace partners to do intervals, where I'll warm up with 1 or 2 groups and then jump to a higher intensity for the on portion of the interval, and then back it down to a lower pace for the recovery part and go back and forth. And that, again, just hits that nice sweet spot of having somebody to chase and being, roughly within the range, not a, completely perfectly straight line, the way people like to do on Trainer Road. But, just motivated to stay in the zone, and it feels still kind of like playing. So Zwift, I dig it. Okay, so those were 3 specific and all, curiously, orange apps. Now the next 2 are types of things that I have paid for and continue to pay for. Number 2 is entertainment. There used to be one handy thing, at least here in the United States, which was the GCN app, which had a ton of race coverage in there, and it was like $50 a year. You could watch live racing, you could watch replays, you could watch it on your phone, you could stream it on the TV. Love that. That went away. That's a bummer. Gone for me are the days, despite being a cheap person still, of scouring the internet for free pirated feeds that infest your computer with all sorts of malware. I'm happy to pay a little bit, but I just wish there's like one spot to do so. So now I pay for Peacock, which, I watch the Olympics on that. It has a lot of the ASO races, the Tour, the Vuelta, a few other ASO races. In the past, I've paid for Flow Sports, which is a lot more expensive. It's like $150 a year. I wish there was one handy solution to point to. I know HBO Max now has a lot of the coverage that the GCN app did, but for that you've got to have HBO subscription and the Max subscription on top of that. So I don't have a great solution here. Maybe you do. If you live in the US, what is your source for bike racing entertainment? If you live in Europe, consider yourself lucky. You can just turn on the television a lot of time and watch it. South America, the rest of the world, I don't know what you guys have. But here in the US, I'm happy to pay. I wish there was just one spot like the GCN app used to be. And lastly, but not leastly, the thing I'm happy to pay for is training. Strava has some training stuff in there. I don't think it's great. Zwift has a lot of workouts in there, and I often will use individual workouts, but as far as a training plan, doesn't really cut the mustard. And if you're trying to improve, or if you got a big, hairy goal on the horizon that you're training for, having a plan is a good thing. There are a few different options out there that I've paid for over the years. Paid for coaches' plans, and then had those delivered through Training Peaks, which is a fantastic app. Trainer Road is a good option for many folks. I've dabbled with that. And then recently, the FastCat app called CoachCat is something that I used. I worked for FastCat for 2023, so that's not something I was paying for then, but I've been enjoying that balance of human-created planning and some AI tweaking to what's going on with you. Now, nobody needs a training plan all the time. I mean, maybe some of you type AAA people want to have every single minute of every day scripted out. Most of us just want to ride bikes and have fun, and then sometimes dig in and do some work that we feel confident will pay dividends down the road. And if you're again training for a big event, investing in your engine is going to pay much bigger dividends than investing in wheels or a bike or gear, right? So training, it's worth investing in. And again, Trainer Road, FastCat's CoachCat. There's a relatively new app called Breakaway. And all these things I think are worth checking out if you're looking to step it up in 2025. So that's my list. 5 apps I've paid for and continue to pay for. What is on your list? I'm curious to know what you think and what has worked well for you. Next up for me, I'm working on a couple things. I just got my blood drawn this morning because I'm doing a video with my old buddy Tim Irwin, who's a doctor. Guy has bachelor's, master's, PhD, and MD. He's got a radiology practice, got a beautiful family, he's an overachiever. He's opening up a new performance medical center down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I'm gonna head down there. We'll do some testing involving some of my own internal measurements, and we'll report back for you guys on that as far as other ways you can improve yourself besides FTP testing. So that's a video you can watch for in the coming weeks. In the meantime, you guys know what to do. Get your butt on a bike, even if it's inside, and enjoy the ride.